Hi there, I'm Seb Maley, and in this video we'll talk about our new government and what they're likely or not likely to do for the self-employed. It was no surprise that the Labour Party comprehensively won the election on the 4th of July, bringing an end to 14 years of Conservative leadership. It was under this Conservative rule that contractors, freelancers and the self-employed felt like they were becoming increasingly marginalised and, in some cases, actively targeted by the government. So there was naturally the hope that a new governing party could bring a breath of fresh air and show support and solidarity for what is undoubtedly a vital part of the UK's economy and potential future growth. But is that going to be the case with Labour? Self-employed people and contractors will obviously have been keeping their ears to the ground in the run-up to polling day, listening to what Labour were saying in interviews, debates and, importantly, their manifesto. Ultimately, the manifesto was fairly light on detail, but there are some signs that Labour do have the flexible workforce in their sights when it comes to legislative change. The key pledge is around the broad issue of employment status and worker rights, which has been an ongoing talking point for many years, but has continued to become more convoluted and confusing. When we talk about employment status in the UK, we can either be talking about status for employment rights or employment status for tax. These two streams are completely distinct from one another. There's nothing tying them together, and if status is ever challenged, cases are heard by completely different tribunal systems. Being employed for employment law purposes doesn't necessarily mean you are employed for tax purposes and vice versa. On the employment law side, things are further complicated by there being a third, worker status, which sits in between employment and self-employment and gets some, but not all, employment rights and protections. On the tax side, there are technically just two statuses, that of employed or self-employed, although contractors who have ended up working inside I-35 could legitimately have an argument that they are also caught in a bit of a no man's land between the two. All of this could potentially be manageable if actually determining what employment status an individual has or should have was a straightforward task. But as we know, it is anything but straightforward. As things stand, decisions are based on case law from dozens of court cases, some of which date back nearly 60 years. Labour's manifesto pledge hones in on one key facet, but there is the potential that in opening this up, it could lead to much wider reform. As things stand, they are promising to ditch the confusing worker status when it comes to employment rights and simply have one status which will carry full employment rights and protections for everyone except, and I quote, the genuinely self-employed. Those final words are quite key, and it is those that could open up more comprehensive changes. There's no point in making adjustments to employment status unless you also deal with the manner in which status is determined, and doing that could have ramifications both in status for employment law but also in tax and IR35. When it comes to I-35, Labour have been completely silent on the issue so far. Given how prominent it has been over the last few years, both politically but also in the way it has impacted businesses, I would be surprised if it wasn't on their agenda to look at. But whether that results in any change remains to be seen. Now is certainly the time to keep IR35 and the off-payroll rules in the public eye, and people can possibly help by engaging with their MPs, who in many cases will be new to their role. We'll keep tabs on what Labour and in particular the new Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, say over the coming weeks, but the real litmus test for how things are likely to pan out will be the autumn statement, which is likely to be in October at some point. Until then, we'll keep you updated with any new developments, so please subscribe to be notified, and we'll see you next time.